Set in 1944, when the Nazis occupied Finland, burning entire villages and homes of the locals, the story focuses on an aging gold miner working alone. He discovers a few gold nuggets in a river stream, proving that there is gold in the surrounding area. Far from the conflict and war zones, the miner begins digging, searching for traces of gold in the soil. After days of digging at various spots, the miner finally finds something yellow, something he was searching for, a piece of gold. With that much gold, the miner is certain to strike it rich, enough to enjoy his old age alone. However, the problem is that the nearest bank or gold shop is quite far away, so the miner must embark on a long journey, carrying all that gold. Coinciding with his departure, a group of Nazi soldiers, who had just finished their mission of burning down the entire native population in Finland, appears. The miner, wanting to avoid trouble, tries to pass by without drawing attention. One soldier almost shoots him, but the captain forbids it, reasoning that it would be a waste of bullets and energy. After all, they had already placed many landmines at several points along the road ahead, so even without the sergeant shooting, the miner would likely die anyway. Along the road already traversed by the soldiers, the miner finds several native locals deliberately hung on electric poles. Trying to stay focused on his mission and not care, he continues on. However, there are still about 4 Nazi soldiers who had intentionally separated from the group. This time, the miner is stopped and ordered to dismount from his horse, so reluctantly, he complies to avoid trouble and continue his journey. Instead of a routine check and being allowed to go, the miner is discovered to be carrying a large amount of gold. Not only that, but his pet dog is also forced to flee after one soldier deliberately shoots at it. At this point, the miner can only stand silently, without doing anything. He truly wants to avoid trouble and only wishes to go to the city to sell his gold. But when the soldiers keep laughing and pointing their weapons at his head, the miner, running out of patience, begins to draw a knife from its sheath. And this is what happens. Miner easily slaughters the 4 soldiers. Whoever this miner truly is, the sound of the gunfire draws the captain and his group back, only to find their 4 soldiers dead in a gruesome manner. Immediately after inspecting his men, the captain realizes that the miner is carrying a significant amount of gold. Seeing this as an opportunity that cannot be missed, the captain and his entire group decide to pursue him, to seize all the gold. And yes, the miner manages to survive the gunfire and cannon attacks from the captain. However, what he doesn't realize is that the captain deliberately stops shooting because the miner has entered a minefield. miner survives, but his beloved horse does not. As the captain and his troops appear, the miner continues to gather all his scattered gold, completely ignoring them. The captain could easily shoot the miner, but he deliberately lets him finish collecting all the gold to make it easier to take it. However, this seems to be a grave mistake, because the miner already has his own plan to escape by picking up a stone, and this is what he does next. Due to the explosion and gunfire, the area is filled with flying dust, obscuring visibility. The captain, unwilling to risk stepping on a mine, orders one of his men to advance. But the miner immediately throws a landmine directly at the soldier's head. The captain should not have underestimated the old miner, because when he sends 2 more of his men forward, they die on their own after stepping on the mines scattered throughout the area. The miner disappears, while the captain, still desperate for the gold, has no choice but to keep chasing him until he gets it. Since the road is littered with mines they planted themselves, the captain orders the sergeant to take 2 native female prisoners to be used as sacrificial decoys, walking at the front. While the captain is inspecting the area, he accidentally finds a necklace dropped by the miner, which he immediately takes to find out information and its origin.
Over and out. The General. Thank you, General.
After the sergeant contacts headquarters, they finally obtain information about the miner's name and background. His full name is Atami Korpi, a Finnish sergeant, the most feared in his unit. At that time, during a conflict with Russia, Atami lost his home and entire family. This turned him into a brutal soldier who was hard to control, so the Finnish military sent Atami alone to face about 300 Russian soldiers, and Atami managed to slaughter them all single-handedly, earning him the legendary nickname Kosi, meaning immortal.
To hunt Russian patrols. They no control him. They just Finns. They gave up trying to He became a one.
The sergeant suggests abandoning the plan and returning to headquarters, but the captain, overly ambitious for the gold, doesn't believe a word of the story.
Gold is our way out.
Back to Atami, who has just arrived at a location with a burnt-out vehicle. Atami, being an ordinary human, can still be injured by gunfire. While resting, the captain and his soldiers appear, forcing Atami to quickly hide under the chassis of a truck. Since they brought tracking dogs, Atami is forced to puncture the fuel tank to mask his scent from the dogs. Just as they stop, Atami quickly escapes. Atami is hit by a bullet in the leg, prompting the captain to send his 2 tracking dogs after him. Once again, Atami does something unpredictable. He sets himself on fire.
Finish him.
Atami manages to escape by diving into the water, with no other option but to stay at the bottom of the river. When Atami doesn't resurface, the captain orders 3 of his men to row a boat to the middle of the river and find Atami. If the captain still thinks Atami is an ordinary old man who gives up easily, he is gravely mistaken again. When one soldier is ordered to dive to the riverbed, Atami swiftly stabs the soldier's neck from behind and takes the air supply from the soldier's body. When the soldier doesn't return, the captain orders another of his men to go down. But instead of results, the remaining soldiers are terrified when Atami's head emerges from the water. The captain is forced to shoot his fleeing subordinate for refusing orders, which, once again, is a grave mistake, because Atami uses the soldier's body to shield himself from the gunfire. The captain seems to be just as relentless. When he sees Atami's abandoned pet dog, he gets a brilliant idea to track Atami by using the dog to find its master.
Find me a boat.
After walking until nightfall, Atami arrives at the city he was heading to. But he is shocked to find that the city has been burned to the ground by the captain and his troops. Needing rest, Atami stops at a burnt-out fuel station. After closing his eyes for a few minutes, he hears a dog barking in the distance. When he goes outside, it turns out to be his pet dog. Atami collapses after being hit by a dynamite explosion attached to his dog. When he comes to, he is greeted by the captain and two of his men, who immediately hang him on a signpost.
Any last words?
Moments after Atami convulses, out of breath, the captain and his two men assume he is dead. The captain leaves a single gold nugget as a final tribute and a thank you for the gold he obtained. And unbelievably, moments after the captain leaves, Atami suddenly comes back to life because, in fact, he wasn't dead, but pretending to be. Using the bullet wound in his leg, Atami impales it on a bolt to support his body, allowing him to keep breathing. The next morning, while still hanging on the pole, a Nazi plane happens to land at the site. The gust of wind causes the pole to sway, eventually making Atami fall into the bushes. Seeing Atami still alive, one of the pilots is ordered to finish him off. Atami easily takes down one soldier, including another he hits with a rock from behind. With the fact that all his gold has been taken by the captain, Atami buries the single gold nugget in his pocket as a sign of surrender or despair. But when he sees the plane belonging to the two soldiers in front of him, Atami quickly digs up his gold again after coming up with a brilliant idea. Something far beyond reason happens when Atami's strong determination makes him a man of steel resolve. He stitches his wounds one by one using rusty wire, even sterilizing them with fuel. Switching to the captain, who has arrived in a forested area, their journey is suddenly halted by a plane landing in the middle of the road. Upon inspection, inside is the lifeless pilot, complete with a familiar-looking rope. Upon closer inspection, the sergeant realizes it's the rope they used to hang Atami on the pole.
I recognize it, I swear.
Let's get the fuck out of here.
The captain's soldiers begin to panic after hearing that Atami has risen from the dead. Two soldiers guarding the vehicle with the female prisoners start talking about Atami, the legend. One of the female prisoners, named Anna, further clarifies that they've messed with the wrong person. As a native Finn, she knows full well the story of Atami, who refuses to die. It's not about who's the strongest, but who never gives up.
We all know the story, where hundreds of Russians have died. What is left of your sorry-ass company?
What?
The two soldiers are killed after being thrown from the vehicle. Atami immediately hands out weapons to the female prisoners to work with him in slaughtering the Nazi soldiers. He stabs the truck driver with a knife, allowing Anna to take control of the truck. After seizing the truck, Atami jumps onto the captain's tank. Anna drives her truck alongside the truck, carrying the soldiers. Back to Atami, who is trying to open the tank's door with his pickaxe. The captain, realizing this, immediately orders his sergeant to get out. The sergeant, who was arrogant in the beginning thanks to the captain's backing, is now like a scared chicken. While pleading to be spared, two soldiers on motorcycles appear. Without wasting energy to deal with them, Atami only needs to do something like this.
It's Koshai!
Atami immediately chases the captain using the motorcycle. As for the sergeant, his fate is truly unfortunate, as after escaping the lion's mouth, he now faces the tiger's jaws when the female prisoners appear wielding firearms. Switching to the captain, who has arrived at his destination, a pickup plane that will take him back home. Caring only about the gold for his retirement, he shoots his last subordinate to avoid sharing the profits. As the captain and his pilot are about to take off, Atami appears on his motorcycle. Thinking Atami was crushed by the plane, he is actually still alive, hanging under the plane with his trusty pickaxe. Though he briefly loses his grip, Atami manages to hold on and tries to enter through the emergency door. From here, a duel ensues between the captain and Atami. The captain cannot fathom why Atami is so hard to kill. But after several mistakes, this time the captain will show no mercy and plans to finish Atami with his own hands. Having exhausted much of his energy, Atami is brutally beaten by the captain. Astonishingly, Atami keeps getting up, falling and rising again, until the captain tires himself out and decides to use another method, a plain seatbelt with a metal buckle. The captain beats Atami until he's battered, but he tires himself out again and pauses his attack. At that moment, Atami notices an airdropped bomb typically deployed manually and gets the idea to drop the captain from the plane by hooking his belt to the bomb. Done with the captain, Atami now faces another problem when the plane's pilot dies from blood loss after being shot during takeoff. Atami quickly searches for a parachute, but finds none, So the only way to survive is to strap himself in as tightly as possible to reduce the impact of the crash. Whatever Atame's fate, we are briefly taken to a Finnish military base when Anna and her companions arrive driving a Nazi tank, with the soldier tied to it.
Kaikki muut ovat kuolleet.
Sari vaan.
Terve.
Back to the crash site, Atami somehow survives after the plane coincidentally lands on wet, muddy ground, softening the impact and preventing a massive explosion. A few days later, Atami arrives at the city center, heading to one of the few remaining open banks. With his disheveled appearance and a mining pickaxe in hand, the two guards don't dare to stop him.
Seteleitä. Isoja.